The big town. All roads lead here. When you walk these streets, you know you're in the capital of the world. You can feel it. New York may have changed, but they still come here from all over the world. The immigrants and outcasts from 100 nations to find the golden streets and the shining towers of their dreams. But instead of dreams, there are those with images of hell in their brains. There are those who see our shining towers in flames. They see blood flowing through the streets of America. On a cold February morning, part of their twisted vision came true, and a dark shadow fell over this city that sent a chill up the spine of the whole nation. A half a ton of bomb under one of the world's tallest buildings, tens of thousands inside, 6 people killed outright, 1,000 injured. The FBI said if conditions had been right, the whole immense tower could have crashed down onto lower Manhattan.
I never want to go through that again. I'll never go in that building. It was horrible, the feeling not getting out, not being able to get out.
Until that morning, this scene was unthinkable in America. This was something that happened to other people in other places. Paris, London, Rome, the Middle East. Somehow, with all the wars, all the revolutions, all the killing, America had been spared. Until now. And it was the Middle East, as the FBI confirmed within a week of the bombing. The way we were told the story, it was almost laughable.
He returned to the Ryder Truck Company about 10:15 a.m. this morning, ostensibly to obtain the return of a $400 deposit fee he had left for the van when he rented it.
The worst terrorism ever in the United States, and the world's stupidest terrorist, who returned to collect his refund on the Ryder truck that carried the bomb. That was the way we heard it. But for some people, it wasn't the truth. The real story was far different, far more terrifying.
This trade center bombing was a very professional job. In the beginning, the federal agencies and the media slept it off as a few amateurs coming in and deciding that they wanted to make a statement. This group that did the trade center bombing, in my opinion, was trained by international experts. Was it us? Could have been.
Gene Wheaton is an expert on spies and terrorism. He's one of our team of investigators using the latest technology to search the electronic record.
That's satellite break up.
This is the nerve center where we began our investigation into the World Trade Center story. We examined thousands of hours of both official and unofficial accounts of what happened.
Back it up again. Hold it. Freeze. There he is.
It was on these screens that we first encountered the faces of men we would later call Allah's hitmen. Detective Arthur Nescarella is also working with us, along with writer Robert Friedman. They'll help us get past the obvious story behind the headlines into a more murky world where right and wrong, the truth, lies, loyalty, and hatred are all stood on their heads. This is the world of conspiracy. 15 weeks after the Twin Towers exploded, a new bombshell rocked New York. There was a new wave of arrests. Again, all the suspects were tied to the Blind Sheikh, and their new plan, Plan B as it was called, was breathtaking.
The target sites were the Lincoln Tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, the United Nations, the federal building at 26 Federal Plaza, which houses the FBI.
This time, the disaster had been averted. The plotters were arrested inside their rented bomb factory in the very act of preparing their murderous paste. It was almost too perfect. Then the story came out. The FBI had an informer next to the Sheikh. They had an informer and they had tapes, 150 hours of secret tapes. The informer's name was Imad Salim. He was one of the Sheikh's most trusted aides. The Sheikh had even sent the informer to appear on television to tell the world the Sheikh was a man of peace.
He was accused in Egypt by murdering or inspiring of murdering President Anwar Sadat. And after he was put on a very serious trial, he's acquitted. So we cannot point our finger to him now and say he's a murderer or he's conspirator or whatever.
We learned more about this informer. We watched him on television. He said he was a former Egyptian colonel. Others said he was paid up to $500,000 by the FBI for his services, but little else was known.
Hold it. Freeze.
So conspiracy put Arthur Nescarella to work. We sent him to check out the informer's background and official record.
I made my living in the street, not necessarily in the halls of justice. I learned a long time ago that if you want to walk the streets, you'll find out a lot more than if you want to drive around in a kite. But if you want documentation, you want concrete stuff, the guy's an enigma. He was in this country, but he lived here, he ate here, he drank here, he played here, but there's no record of it. Nothing official, let me put it that way. Somebody was very successful in expunging Mr. Salim from the landscape of America.
Robert Friedman checked and rechecked his notes and tapes. He wasn't satisfied with what he was hearing and seeing. Our sources were hearing a different story, a story of a murder cover-up that leads directly to the World Trade Center bombing. Key evidence, this amateur videotape, Rabbi Meir Kahane's last speech. In this room somewhere is a murderer. Kahane is now seconds from death. The tape ends a moment before the assassin struck. After the killing, a man is shot and arrested with a gun in his hand. The police say he was a lone gunman, but our sources say it was a conspiracy, and the real killers got away because of a police cover-up. Did the FBI or the CIA let the Sheikh and his men get away with Kahane's murder? And did that mistake lead directly to the World Trade Center bombing? When we come back. Something terrible happened during the winter of 1990 inside a conference room at this Manhattan hotel. A frantic call to 911 set into motion a drama which has now led to the World Trade Center bombing.
It also won't go tell the others objective, which is what the Federation does here.
You're looking at amateur video of a man about to die. His name is Rabbi Meir Kahane. He had been speaking for nearly an hour. At the end of his speech, friends gathered around him. He was a man of controversy, considered a racist by Arabs and even some Jews. The amateur video camera was turned off 10 seconds before an assassin shot Kahane dead.
We had witnesses who were in the room when the incident occurred. We have a witness who was directly behind him, chasing him. We have a couple of other witnesses who saw the encounter in the street. Everything indicates he was acting alone.
3 years after he was gunned down, they're still chanting his name on the streets of New York. Rabbi Meir Kahane.
Here we see Rabbi Kahane, a Jewish leader, gunned down on the streets of New York, and the police managed to bungle up every possible aspect of the investigation.
What was your feeling about the lone gunman theory?
I thought it was preposterous based on what my sources in the NYPD told me, that they were ordered to treat this as a simple homicide, based on what my sources in the FBI told me, that every time that they got a little bit ambitious and started broadening their investigation to search out El-Said Nasser's possible alleged terrorist links, they were told from the top to cool it, to stop investigating, that the NYPD would handle it as a simple homicide.
A single gunman acting alone. How often that phrase echoes in dark and complex cases. The suspect shot and arrested that night, El-Said Nasser, recovered and stood trial. His lawyer was William Kunstler. The trial was bitter.
There were several times during the proceedings itself where fights started right in the courtroom between these two sides.
We want justice! We want justice!